welcome to another edition of Seekers of the Supernatural. I'm your host, Tony Spera, with host Edo Lauren Warren and a special guest tonight, Mrs. Gail Martin, correct?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Martin from Brookfield, who had a unique experience happen to her about 13 years ago. And what I'd like to do on this show is to start out first prefacing with Ed and Lorraine. The show is basically going to be about spirit photography and ghosts, things of that nature. I'd like to start out with Ed and Lorraine explaining what happened in this photograph that Gail was involved in.
Well, Gail came to us as a student. But prior to coming to us, Tony, she had attended a lecture the three of us had given in Monroe, am I right? In Monroe. And she gave Ed a little photograph, a little small 3x5 photograph. And it showed a woman, the spirit of a woman, standing next to her in her yard. I was intrigued by that photograph. And I took it and I had a slide made of it. And I brought it home and looked at it. And you could make out now on the slide all of the detail of this elderly woman. You could make out the fact that she was wearing like some sort of a dressing gown and a house coat over it. And she is looking at Gail.
We have a slide of that. They can put it on.
Yeah, we have, and she is looking at her and she is digging in her garden. Now Gail becomes a student. I never connected at all. I didn't connect the same person who gave the photograph.
She's the person in the photograph.
That she was the person in the photograph.
I see.
Because, Tony, you're looking at the ghost more than you're looking at the other person. And then she mentioned one night in class that she had another photograph taken moments later. Now, the history of all of this is really phenomenal. But I think Gail should tell that story.
I think it'd be good
about
if she could explain her experiences
the
before
house
we see that slide.
I
think that'd be nice. Gail?
Well, we bought a cottage, and we did a lot of construction on it, made it into a house. And this picture was taken during that construction.
Okay.
From what we can gather about it, we believe that the woman is a woman that owned the property before we did.
Okay.
And we tried to get a little bit of background on her because we really can't recognize who she is. We just know it's nobody that we know. So we reached the niece of the woman that owned that property, who we believe this is, and we're trying to get a little bit more information about her to verify who it actually is.
What did you think of the picture when you first seen it?
Well, we were so busy working and we didn't really give it a lot of thought. Initially, we kind of laughed about it because it looked like a statue standing next to me, and we just figured it was a double exposure and really didn't pay a lot of attention to it.
And imagine how many people viewing this think psychic photographs are double exposures too.
Well, I had seen your lecture in Monroe. And then I said, gee, with the pictures that you had shown, I said, I have a picture like that at home too. So that next day I went and dug it out, and I had the two of them there. I had forgotten that they were both there.
That's the incredible thing about this, Gail, is that, number one, this spirit woman is looking at you. She looks kind of amused over the fact that you're digging in that property. And then the second shot, you're laughing because your husband said something funny to you. And this woman has actually got her hand up to her mouth and she's laughing, which shows that the spirit is very aware of what you're saying and what you're doing. And that's incredible. You know, we have two pictures like that, large ones, but we do have a slide, which they'll see the first picture. I know it's going to come up there sometime.
Okay, well, I think before we see the slide, I don't know if we could even focus in on this. I think they're going to put the slide up, so I won't be able to show this.
No.
So I think we'll see the slide first, and then we'll look at this. Maybe this would be a better shot. I'm not sure which would be better.
Better. I don't know which was going to be
about
better.
13 years ago it was taken.
There it is.
Here it is,
Tony. Now, you see that Gail is higher than that woman, but Gail is on a pile of dirt. She's up, and she is digging, and the woman is looking down at her, what she is doing. Now, this woman had all sorts of gardens and things in this area, but there were so many sentimental attachments to this particular property. The house that Gail is living in, we believe, is the house that that woman built for her son, who was a doctor, for him to use as a piece of summer property to get away from his hectic practice in New York. And she idolized this man. It was her only child, and she idolized him and built this place for him on her property.
Oh, okay.
On her property, and so he was close to her. Now, something that was of tremendous interest to him were children. They were tremendous interest. Imagine now, Gail has a daycare. Well, children were tremendous interest to this doctor. So this one summer, during the polio epidemic, he was at a children's camp when he contacted polio and died 3 days later. So you can imagine how tragic that had to be for his mother. And that in itself, tragedies create the ghost syndrome, and that in itself would cause her to remain there. But she probably didn't show herself, Tony. She probably remained dormant in that area because no one was there.
So if you had to guess, Lorraine, you would guess that that is the mother of that doctor?
Yes, yes, I feel that very strongly.
I think one of the interesting things, too, is the fact that when people start renovations on a house, everything could be great up until that point. Then all of a sudden they start knocking walls down, putting doors and windows over here, and then the hauntings start. The spirits that were in that house are very upset about the fact that where they used to go through a doorway, now there's a wall. You know, and where there was a window, there is no window.
Right.
So this even gets more confusing to that spirit, and that's when we have what we call infestation, which means the beginning of a haunting. Now this lady is watching you dig, and she's very interested in what you're doing. The second picture, if we could hold that up, Tony.
I think they're going to show the second slide, aren't they?
Yeah. Maybe it's easier for me to hold it up.
See it well this way. Okay, I guess you don't have the second
no,
picture.
no,
It's on
no.
here.
Here it is. It's right there, Tony.
All right, well, I don't know if we can see it, but, why don't you hold it, Lorraine?
All right, let me, that's perfect.
Just hold it straight out.
Straight out. Oh,
That's
for
fine.
this camera.
Yep.
All right, now that's the second photograph,
Can
and
you zoom in on that?
that was taken.
I don't know if she can, but maybe she can zoom in on it now. Try that.
That was taken just moments after the first one. Now, as you notice, Gail turns around and Gail is smiling, and because her husband is saying something funny. So at that point, the woman is smiling, and she puts her hand up to her mouth in that manner. These are two exceptionally remarkable psychic
And she looks like an
photographs.
elderly woman who would dress that way. They used to put the...
House coats over their dressing gown, yes. Yes.
That is an amazing.
It
that
is.
an
Have you ever
amazing
heard
shot.
anything in the house or felt there was a presence there?
I can't say I have, no.
No.
But
No.
see, there's where she seems to be. That must have been her love, is out in the yard, in the garden, and now you're doing something to improve that. After all of these years probably of neglect, now you're going to be fixing it. And I believe that that is the reason she's there.
I hope
I
she's
really
happy
think-
with what we're doing there anyway.
Yeah, I
Well, if she
believe
wasn't, she'd go,
she'd make her presence known in other ways. But
yes, she would.
she would.
We know
but-
that.
But I feel she must be happy with you. You know, she may never show herself again like this, but the important thing is that when you began to do this work, that you were going to improve. You were going to bring something back that had been there before. And I think that's what's important.
It makes me feel at ease to see there's a smile on her face.
I don't blame
there
you.
is.
Yeah,
And there is
very
a smile.
comforting.
I know. And
She was
when
happy with the situation.
she's very happy with the situation, and it does make you feel good. It really does. It really makes you feel so good to see that.
Now, our next slide is on your list there, Tony?
That's the one at Carousel.
Okay,
I think.
there's a young couple with a ghost in the
Okay,
back
that's
of
the
them.
Carousel Gardens.
That's the Carousel.
Okay,
We
so
can
if we
show
could-
that.
we
It
can bring up
shows
the
a
next
young
slide.
couple having their picture taken, and in the background you'll see a ghostly figure, which is that we feel of Ruth.
Right now,
There it is.
there are two women, Ed. That's not a couple. The man was taking it. The
That looks like a man to me on the right there.
No, they're two girls, and they're
Look like a man to
they,
you?
they're taking.
I'm not getting in the middle of this.
The man is taking the photograph. Now that is the room that we use as a classroom, and her bedroom, what was once Ruth's bedroom, is very close to there. Now, for some reason, there was a very definite law of attraction that brought about that particular photograph.
I think we actually, didn't you just cut off the top of the ghost?
Yes.
Yeah, they cut off the top of the ghost.
It was kind of
That's
cut off.
okay.
That's all right.
If we can see the third slide, I think it is the couple who just moved into
Oh,
a new
that-
house and
Yep,
saw a ghost.
That was in
just moved
Trumbull.
into a brand new home, and they heard all kinds of strange sounds and footsteps, and they'd heard banging, knockings, and they took pictures in there. And this picture that you're going to look at right now, here's their ghost.
Couple who just moved in.
But now that was taken
Just to the right there.
to the right.
Above the chair, right?
Right above the chair.
Right.
Now, this is in the lowest level of that property, but they did have a lot, unlike Gale, they had all sorts of infestation. But as you see here, you see that foggy, luminescent form of a ghost. Nothing quite as beautiful
Well, it
as
shows that
Gale.
the spirit that showed itself to you is very happy with what's going on because it never performed any kind of supernatural phenomenon in your
No,
home.
that's wonderful.
But in
You're-
this house here, these people right away experienced all kinds of sounds and everything.
But they had built the house. The people that bought this home, the new people that bought this home in Trumbull, moved into a house where the owners had been there for years and built the house.
Oh.
So the vibrations were really built up from that family that preceded them.
Okay, the next slide, you can maybe talk about this one a little bit, is Providence ghost outside.
Oh yeah, that was a very interesting case in Providence, Rhode Island. We took a number of pictures of ghosts. We didn't, but people that lived there did. And it was kind of a sad story. There was once a house where they take these pictures, and in that house lived a couple during World War II. The man apparently had been, dead, and then they said that he didn't die, and
Oh, this is the sale
he had
of
been
the
listed
man.
as missing in action, dead.
His wife was informed that he was killed in action, not
Yeah.
even missing, that he was actually killed in
And then
action.
a week later, she committed suicide.
She committed suicide, and 1 week after that, he was found alive.
Jeez.
But no one ever occupied that cottage.
So Rob, if we could see that slide.
No one ever occupied that cottage
Look at that, huh?
again.
That's-
Now that looks like a man,
Yes,
but we have other photographs which look like a woman.
yes, we
So
do.
where you have one spirit, you
You
have
have
many other
more
spirits.
than one, yes.
Okay. The next slide says that it's got two slides and of ghosts in a cathedral. There's a
Oh, yeah.
long shot and a
We'll
close-up.
see
Oh,
now
yeah, the
how many
long-
ghost hunters we got out there.
No, that's...
If you look at this slide now, I want you to see, don't point it out to them.
Don't do that.
Let them see where the man is. There's a
Yeah.
man, he's right there in that picture. And if you can see him, you're a certified ghost hunter. If you can't, we'll show you the next slide, which shows where he's at. But he's very plain, and I'm looking at him
Yeah.
right here.
Okay, Marianne, why don't you go to the next slide and we'll focus on that.
Yeah, go to the next one. There
There
he
he
is. See, right in the corner, and you see him, and that's in the cathedral. Now remember that the cathedrals, well, buildings in the United Kingdom are extremely old. And the more time that we spend there doing our research, the more we become aware of really the bloody history concerning that country. Although it is absolutely beautiful and we love it, it seems that every time we go now and we become involved in some new type of an investigation, we find out more bloody history of the area.
Well, for instance, when we were up in a small village called Warnish, we didn't realize it, but there's a church that has been there for about 600 years. Just the ruins are left, and there's a cemetery. But in that church, about 200 years ago, there was over 100 people burnt to death. They were all herded in there like cattle and burnt to death. So you can imagine the terrible tragedy that occurred
Well,
there.
the fires just happened in the church?
No, they
were,
set it on fire,
they were
Tony.
prisoners, men, women, and children. They put them in there, and it was a clan, Scott clan, and I think it was the
McDonald's and the Campbells.
right?
Yeah, the McDonald's and the Campbells.
And the Campbells were burnt to death in that church, so you can imagine the terrible things that go on there.
Do you think the most hauntings occur like in places like United Kingdom compared to here?
Yes. Oh, yes, Tony.
Wherever there's tragedies.
Wherever there's tragedy. I mean, we've had our share of that type of tragic history in this country, but we're not as old, Tony. So, I mean, the older the area, the more chance of tragedies. You know, our greatest thing is the witch trials.
Well, you go through the Highlands of Scotland, and there have been people who have actually seen battles between different clans. They materialize as sort of like what they call retrocognition, going back into time. And they actually see these battles all around them, and then they just disappear.
Didn't you once say to me that you saw like a bunch of soldiers or something in Scotland, and you didn't know where they came from? What, was that Scotland?
No, they were Vikings, Tony.
Vikings.
The Vikings,
Yeah,
we still don't know, Tony.
Where was that? Was that in the United Kingdom?
We were way up in northwest Scotland, and we had another couple with us, and we got lost up in the mountains. We were looking for stags. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, but 2 o'clock in the morning there is like 3 o'clock in the afternoon here. It's so light. And we're going down this dirt road in a forest, and all of a sudden, here comes a group of people, and they have Vikings costumes on. At least that's what we thought. They had the hats with the big horns on it, and the fur capes, and they had spears, but they didn't seem to pay much attention to us. Now, being in the work that we are, I would immediately think, well, this is very strange. They could be ghosts, but we knew they weren't ghosts because, you know, they were solid as we were. And probably about 20 yards from where we were, they had a tent, which was a Viking tent. And this one guy was taking hatchets and throwing them at the trees. And I thought, look, they don't even pay attention to us. But to this day, we don't know who they were or what they are.
Paid us
We
no
just
heed.
continued right on.
No heed whatsoever. They didn't pay to us.
So they could have been ghosts,
They
right?
could have been, yeah.
They
It
could
could
have
have
been.
been
I
something
mean,
that we were looking at from the past.
But it was a rather
There was no cars around.
No, it was a rather
nothing around
troubling
there.
thing to see, and we really didn't stop and go out.
That's
Well,
wild.
when guys are carrying spears and battle axes and everything, you don't stop to ask them what they're doing there.
And everything they were using was
Guess not.
primitive. Yes.
I think the next slide is something that's pretty amazing, too. Zaitan, Egypt, Ed? That one?
Yeah,
Oh,
this occurred in 1968, 1969.
Now, what are we looking at
And
right
what
there?
you see over to the right there is an apparition of the Blessed Mother over St. Mary's Church in Zaitan, Egypt, which is just outside of Cairo. And they would watch this apparition move about the steeple of the church, and there would be 2 doves flying right above her head. But she would walk all around, she would put her hands up, and this picture here and film was taken by the Historical Society in
Zaitan.
from Cairo.
Oh, from
And,
Cairo, sorry.
Hundreds of thousands of people witnessed this. It was quite a thing. There's a whole book on it.
How long did that
It
happen?
lasted for 2 years.
It did?
2 years, yeah.
When? About when did this happen?
68.
68, between
1968.
68 and 70. But even the little birds, even the little doves, were all spirit.
That wasn't like a 24-hour-a-day deal, though.
No.
It'd come and
It would
go?
appear around, like, say, 9 o'clock at night, and it would last for about 20 minutes. But there would be, at one point, I know there was 150,000 people surrounding that whole area watching this.
That is
And it was a
wild.
Coptic church, Tony.
A Coptic church.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, that's the religion. I don't
Greek
know.
Coptic
It's like
church.
it's not like the Greek Orthodox.
Oh.
It's the Greek Coptic
okay.
church.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a supernatural event, or
Oh,
was it?
positively, positively.
Do you think it was a miraculous?
Just as the Blessed Virgin appeared at Lourdes and Fatima, Garabandal, places like that, yes. It was definitely supernatural because there was no way that they could prove it to be anything else.
Because good things happened from it, perhaps?
Yes, good
There was
things
miracles.
didn't.
A lot of miracles occurred, right.
We're hearing more and more things regarding visions, spiritual visions that are happening in different parts of the world. They don't seem to be making it as public as they used to, and I really wonder why.
Can you give me an
Not
example?
just miracles. We have an
Mexico.
influx of cases right now that we've never had before.
No.
Of hauntings, of diabolical infestation. We've never had this kind of activity. All the time we've been in this work, and the cases are coming in every day now, and they're coming in from all over.
So what do you think that,
Well,
that means?
where the Blessed Mother, say, for instance, is occurring. For instance, today, when we were out to lunch with my brother and his wife, the people that own the restaurant are Italian, and they had been in Italy to visit her mother because the mother had been in ill health. And the mother had had somewhat of a type of pulmonary problem. During this big to-do, this big procession to honor the Mother of God, who had appeared in this village. Now, they had this whole big thing going on, and just to honor her. And it wasn't ancient history that we're talking about. It was something that only happened
I
within
think,
the last few years.
On the 13th of this month, we will be going to a town not too far away from here, where we were called in by a police officer in that particular town. And what he told us was that he was working his beat in this project, and that the people started talking about seeing a ghost. Well, he was interested in the subject to a certain extent, and he started to question him. And what he found out was that there was a ghost of a young man who supposedly had been tortured and murdered in that particular project. And he was screaming and yelling for help. Nobody paid attention to him.
The victim.
They opened the doors, they opened the windows and just slammed them, and they paid no attention to this poor guy. That was 20 years ago. The culprits were caught, the murderers. They spent 13 years in prison. They were kids at the time, they're only 17. But they spent 13 years in prison. They're out now. But now, this young man who was tortured and murdered so terribly, we've seen the morgue pictures and everything. You can't imagine what they did to this boy.
No, you wouldn't want
Yeah,
to,
too
Tony.
bad.
And
No, you wouldn't want to.
he is now coming back, and he's telling these people that he wants them to tell the police about why they didn't help him. It seems that he's very disturbed about the fact that nobody came to his aid. Nobody helped him. There was not one good
Understandable.
Samaritan anywhere.
But see,
Wow.
Yeah, it's very
I mean, the
understandable.
things, the very bad things going on in the world today do make you wonder. But then the very good things, the very spiritual things are occurring to let us know that they are still very much there, Tony. I think that's the important thing.
But we're going to be trying to communicate with this young man on the 13th.
But,
We'll have the people there who were involved who had seen him.
yes,
They seen the spirit of this young man, just like we
Yes.
look at that picture.
yes.
And they picked him out of a group of pictures of 10 pictures.
Yeah,
They picked him out.
they picked him
They had
out.
never known the man. They had never seen him.
They
but they
did
picked him out.
a mugshot composite. Now remember, just like Gail, just the same as Gail, spirits are attracted to compassionate people. They're like attracts like. This woman who had her gardens and idolized this son of hers, she had to be a very good woman, and she is attracted to someone like
How does
herself.
it feel to know that this lady was attracted to you?
You
I'm
should
very
feel
flattered.
special.
Yeah,
You
and she
should.
does.
Very flattered.
You should feel very
Yeah.
flattered. And now Gail is the type of woman who cares for children.
And her son cared for children.
And her son cared
That's
for
pretty.
children.
That's pretty amazing in itself, right there. Huh?
See,
So there's
so
a rapport there.
there's
you
a
know.
definite
Your
rapport.
aura shows the same type of sensitivity that her husband had.
Now, where this young man is concerned, the case that you're going to be also working
Right.
with us on, Gail. That young man that was killed so brutally, he appeared to only certain people, just certain people that he would appear to. Now, we've met these people who he appeared to. We've talked to them.
Is there any connection between the people?
They're special people. They're
They're
very
sensitive.
special people. They're people-loving people.
I think we have time. This would be a good slide to end, have as the last slide for this program.
Okay.
It says, statue of Mary crying tears.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A
can
lot
see
of
that,
people
Rob.
say, prove that the supernatural exists. Well, here's the proof. Now, this is a statue of the Blessed Mother, which is carved out of wood. Human tears are coming from the eyes. They analyzed it, and they are human tears. Now, it is not a natural act for human tears to come out of wood, whether
Right.
it's a statue or not.
Right?
And the tears would just flow out of the eyes of that statue. But also, there are also pilgrim statues that bleed human blood, and they are analyzed as human blood. Now, they have taken every test that they can possibly take to prove that this is not any kind of hoax, any kind of a fraud. So there's your proof of the supernatural. There are so many skeptical societies and atheists, and I say to them, prove that that is a fraud. They can't. They cannot do it.
Cannot prove.
No.
Cannot prove a fraud at all.
That is a miraculous miracle that comes from God.
Well, we're just about out of time. I'd like to thank Gail for coming on the program,
Thanks for
We
having
would-
me.
especially in
would
this,
too,
this
Gail.
really lousy weather. Thanks for coming out and showing us these amazing
It's a rainy,
photographs.
stormy night out there.
Oh, I'll tell
Perfect
you.
for tonight.
Yeah, really, the thunder's still going. And Ed and Lorraine, once again, of course, thanks. But can you tell them how to contact you again, Lorraine?
Yes. Oh, and the mail we're getting, Tony, is phenomenal.
We're also on the internet,
Yes.
www, I believe it's, Diana can help me out on that, .com/ghost. We'll, next program perhaps we'll have the email address
Yeah,
right
that
there,
would
the
be
website.
great. The website address.
And it's P.O. Box 41 for mail, regular
Right.
snail mail. Monroe, Connecticut, 06468.
And we do get some beautiful
Letters. Just keep them coming. Keep
Yes,
them coming,
we
ladies.
really, really enjoy their mail.
So for Lorraine Warren, for Ed Warren, for our special guest, Gail, I'm Tony Spera. Good night.